Jason J. Bird Goldstein here for another episode of The Bird's Eye View. I've noticed I did a little bit of a different introduction this episode. It was the first NFL Sunday of the year, aka one of the best days of the entire calendar year. So I had to do the Fox intro song because that sound just gets me so excited. We're going to recap some week one action for you here in a bit, but we're going to touch on my weekend, the NBA, and the MLB before we do that. The NFL wasn't the only return to football this weekend. I made my return to football this weekend. I know me and my friends have been playing basketball over the past couple weekends at the park, but on Friday we decided to play football for the first time, and it was just good to finally be out playing football, tossing the pigskin around with the boys. Yours truly caught the game-winning touchdown when we were playing pickup, so yeah, that felt good, and it was just so much fun being out there playing football again. I missed it, because we were talking about that last week, that we've been playing basketball, but we haven't been playing football enough. After that, me and my friends had another wine night, not at a winery, we just bought some wine from the liquor store, sampled it, had some good rosé, some good Pinot Grigio, another Cabernet, not a Cabernet guy, but it is what it is. Played basketball Saturday, and I did another thing for the first time in a while. Went out to a bar. We were socially distanced from everyone else. Sat outside, got some good drinks out there, and that was fun. It just felt good to be back out at a bar again. The only thing I miss is being at a bar and watching sports together. But hey, that'll come in due time. It's really it for my weekend and what happened there. Nothing too crazy and eventful, but it was still fun. Watched some basketball, which I'll get into. I watched the Nuggets come back in both games 5 and 6 to force another game 7 after being down 3-1. They were down 19 in the third quarter of this game today. They were down 13 in the third quarter yesterday. Came back and managed to win both games, and this Clippers franchise seems to have a tendency to not be able to finish, and they always choke it away, much like they did in, I believe it was 2015 where they blew the 3-1 lead against Houston. I'm not 100% sure, but clearly the Clippers might have a tendency for choking. The Nuggets seem to do their best with their backs against the wall. I'm really, really excited for Game 7. Jokic and Murray have both looked great. It seems like every single three Jokic has shot in the last couple of games is falling, especially when he's getting a shot at the top of the key because everyone knows that's his shot. Porter Jr. has been a little more involved in the offense after calling out Mike Malone. He's been hitting some big shots for this Nuggets team. Even if he's not scoring the 20 points per game he was scoring at the beginning of the restart, he still has been absolutely hooping out there for this team. And it's been fun to watch this series. I put money on the Nuggets to win the series in the beginning because it was plus 810, so I thought that's good value. So why not just take the Nuggets? And if they can win this series, oh man, I'll be happy and I'll be sitting pretty right there. Moving on, the Lakers, they moved on, beat the Rockets. They lost that game 1, and people were like, oh man, Rockets could actually win this series. Same thing with the Blazers. Lakers dominate them, end up winning the series in 5. They're just that good. LeBron was a force the entire series. LeBron just dominated Houston inside. James Harden and Russell Westbrook, neither of them were very efficient in that series, and the entire thing was a blowout. Even Daniel House knew that they lost the series, and that's why he probably had the woman in his room. He's like, we're going to lose, might as well just have someone in the room, he was a little frisky. And excuse me, hopefully I don't have corona. And Lakers, they'll be in the Western Conference Finals, playing the winner of the Nuggets-Clippers Game 7. If I had to pick right now, I'd probably pick the Clippers just because I think that Kawhi and Paul George is not going to let this team lose 3 games in a row and not let this team blow a 3-1 lead. Kawhi's normally a great closer. I think that big time players make big time plays. Although Jokic is arguably one of the top 10 players in the league, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are both killers, and they're going to put the series away in Game 7. Speaking of Game 7s, the Celtics won their Game 7 against the Toronto Raptors. Really, really good game. they made the tough plays when it counted. The main reason the Raptors were in it were because they shot more free throws than the Celtics. But Tatum looked great. Jaylen Brown looked solid. Marcus Smart, that boy was a dog the entire game, making big play after big play whenever it was needed. Whether it was a big shot on offense, a big block on defense, drawing a charge. Marcus Smart was an absolute beast. Electrifies that defense. I'm glad he made first team all defense for the NBA. He deserves it. One of the best defenders in the league. Could easily win Defensive Player of the Year one of these years. And that was just a great game. I'm very excited for this Heat Celtics series. I think it's going to be a fantastic series. Both teams play very similar style of ball. Going through a wing player as their best player, having a bunch of shooters on the outside who control the three, have a lot of good perimeter defenders. I also think the Heat are very similar to the Raptors, where they have a lot more depth than the Celtics do, and almost all the guys on the Heat hustle and play defense. Bam Adebayo, I'm really interested to see who he's going to guard. He's one of the best one-on-one defenders in the league. It'll be interesting to see what he does match up against either Tatum or Jaylen Brown. But having him and Jimmy Butler on defense, being able to take Tatum and Brown one-on-one, is really, really, really big for Miami. And I'm excited for this series. Game one is on Tuesday. I think the Heat are going to jump out and take game one. Not 100% sure, but again, I think this series, no matter what, goes 7. I really am not sure who's going to win this series. It's a tough call. I'm leaning towards picking Miami, but again, I'm really, really, really not sure. Again, I think there's no doubt the series goes 7. These two teams are so evenly matched, and it's going to be one hell of an Eastern Conference Finals. The first time in NBA history in the Eastern Conference Finals where there's no 1 or 2 seed, so that's definitely going to be really cool. And these teams look like the 1 and 2 seeds during the entire postseason. Obviously, Miami's only lost 1 game. And even though Boston went to 7, they really dominated Toronto in that entire series. And that series should have been over in 4 or 5 games. Moving on to talking baseball, I'm just going to talk about the New York Yankees. We might be back, baby. We might be back. Oh, what a big series win for the Yankees this weekend. 4-game sweep of the Orioles, who are on our heels when I recorded the last episode of this podcast. 5 straight wins since then, and they just looked really great, especially the first 2 games. Gerrit Cole went 7 innings, complete game since it was the first game of a doubleheader, shutting down the Orioles the entire game. The offense was getting timely hits, getting hits with the runners on base. It wasn't just mash home run, mash home run, mash home run. Same thing with game 2, scoring 10 runs, winning that game, I believe, 10-1. Again, it was timely hitting. Luke Voit mashed 2 3-run home runs. He's still having a phenomenal year. Still is an MVP candidate for this Yankees team. Who knows where we would be without Luke Voit? Tanaka looked very good that game too. And I'm really, really excited about the way they performed on Friday in both those games. Saturday and Sunday, the Yankees were plagued a bit by some of the hitting issues that have been going on during this cold stretch. Boone was sitting Glaber out. He was sitting at Duhar, who's been hot out in those games. And still, Happ allowed 1 run on Saturday. Jordan Montgomery Happ allowed 1 run today, while Jordan Montgomery allowed 1 run on Saturday while striking out a career-high 9 guys. The starting rotation, which has been a problem for so long, looks to finally have figured out. If the bullpen, which pitched phenomenal this week and continue keeping up this weekend's hot streak, then this Yankees team is obviously going to make a run, especially because we're having Gio Urshela said he's going to come back on Tuesday, and Stanton and Judge could be back by next weekend. We're getting the guys back. Loaisiga's going to be back in this bullpen, and you guys better watch out for this Yankees team because no matter what seed we are in the playoffs, we are going to be a contender for the World Series, and I am so excited about this Yankees team and just glad that we're finally back to playing well and winning 5 in a row. That's really about it, covering basketball and baseball. Now we're going to move on to Week 1 NFL recap. By the way, I'm watching the Chargers-Rams right now. I have the under in this game, under 52 I took it at. 7-1 day, a phenomenal 7-1 day. One of my best ever gambling days ever. I'm just so happy the way I performed, and just an awesome day. If you include my bets from Thursday, then 8-2. But regardless, I'm thrilled. So let's start off by recapping the Thursday night game. I actually took this game a couple weeks ago. I bet on it. For some reason, I bet the over. I got it at 54.5. Most of America got it at 53.5. So yeah, that's my fault for taking it as far back as I did because there was that late push. I thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to get that touchdown at the end to push for the over 54.5, but it is what it is. But speaking of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, oh man, did he look good. One of my friends who was over the house like, Clyde's not a feature back. Clyde's not a feature back. Man, get out of here. Clyde is clearly the feature back. He had 25 carries that game, and he goes, yeah, it's because they were up by a lot. Well, listen, the Chiefs, if they play the way they did, they're going to be up by a lot almost every single game. Again, Clyde looked like he did not look like a first-round pick this year. He looked like an established running back who's been doing this for years in the league. You know, he was the league's leading rusher after week 1, had the best rushing performance this week. Mahomes looked right back to being the Mahomes of late last season and the 2018 Mahomes. This Chiefs offense is just still firing on all cylinders. They're still clicking, and they're still a threat to repeat. Like, I just don't know any way or any team that can stop this Kansas City offense. I'm looking at the other side of the ball. The Texans, they clearly miss Hopkins. I mean, Will Fuller played great. You know, I started him in 2 leagues, and he looked really, really good for my fantasy teams. But the thing is, they just don't have that. They just lack the same explosiveness with Hopkins. Yeah, Cooks is not a bad receiver. Yeah, Cobb is not a bad receiver, but they just don't replace Hopkins. Having a healthy Fuller on the opposite side of Hopkins really opened up a lot more things for this offense and allowed for more big plays. Yeah, Fuller still made catches, but without Hopkins on the team, he's drawing the double teams, and his big play ability might be very limited, and it clearly showed. You know, Watson didn't look too bad. People were giving him a lot of heat, saying, oh, he played terrible. The Texans are not going to be good. Watson didn't play bad. You know, he didn't have his number one receiver. He was one of the best receivers in the NFL, and that's a big part of it. Their line still wasn't great, and their defense looked really bad all game long, even though it was the Chiefs' offense. And yeah, I still think the Texans are going to make the playoffs. Whatever. It's week 1. I'm not worried about it yet. But, yeah, I was just really shocked to see Watson struggle as bad as he did. And the Texans, I thought they'd keep it at least a competitive game, but they did not. Moving on to the Washington football team versus the Philadelphia Eagles, I just want to say, I called it. I said it in my week 1 picks that the Washington football team would beat the Eagles. You know why? I said they would dominate the game in the trenches against this beat-up offensive line with all the pass rushers on Washington. You know what? They sacked Carson Wentz 8 times that game, including 1.5 for my boy Chase Young making his debut. Oh, big play for the Rams. That's not good for the under, but we're still at 27. There still needs to be about 26 more points. No, let's see. They're at 27, so yeah, 26 more points. I was so happy to see Chase Young ball out. He had that beautiful spin move where he got his first career sack. Carson Wentz turned the ball over a few times, and again, the Eagles are going to get out to a slow start. They have all these injuries at receivers still. No Alshon Jeffrey. Jalen Reagor he was back. He did play, but he's still just a rookie. Deshaun Jackson gets older and older every single year. And the offensive line was at 3 starters. No Brandon Brooks, no Lane Johnson, no Andre Dillard. Yeah, they have Jason Peters in there who was a starter last year, but when you're missing 3 guys who are supposed to start this season, it's obviously going to impact that offensive line. And obviously, Miles Sanders was missing too. He was supposed to be one of the better running backs in the NFL this year, one of the better fantasy running backs, and having him at week 1 really changed that offense. Like, Boston Scott is not meant to be their number 1 back. But also, shout out to my other Buckeye, my boy Dwayne Haskins, down 17-0. He could have easily thrown in the towel, but he helped lead that comeback. He helped the Washington football team win their first ever game as the Washington football team. They won that game for Ron Rivera, and it was just awesome to see. And I bet Washington, too, so that's another thing that makes me very, very, very happy. Moving on, the Baltimore game versus the Browns. Oh, the Browns, the good old Browns. You know, I was a little high on them this year. I could be wrong. They stunk the bed today. Oh, my goodness. They just looked horrible. You know, I have many friends who are Browns fans, including my good friend Corbin Walenshaw, the AWL, been my top listener to my podcast so far, so I have to give you a shout-out, Corbin. But, yeah, man, your team just did not look good today. I understand you're playing the Ravens. The Ravens have one of the best offenses in the NFL. They added J.K. Dobbins, who had 2 touchdowns. Another Ohio State Buckeye doing great things today. And that just adds another layer to this offense that's going to make it more explosive and harder to stop. But at the same time, like not the Chiefs, the Browns just looked lifeless on offense. Baker Mayfield was horrible. Odell Beckham or Jarvis Landry couldn't get things going. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, neither of them could establish themselves as a featured back, and it was just a struggle all day for the Browns offensively. And this was actually the one that I lost today. I bet over 47.5 today, and first half it looks good. They have 30 combined points in the first half. But, the Browns offense couldn't do anything, couldn't get in the end zone one time, and that's why they lost. I'm not going to get on the Ravens' case for scoring 38 points for the reason the over didn't hit. I mean, all this Browns team needed to do was get 10 freaking points, and they couldn't do that. That's pathetic. I'm worried about them for sure, just because, I doubted the one. I'm worried about them for sure, just because, wow. The Browns have had issues for years. Baker Mayfield struggled last year. It just seems like it's going to be the same old Browns. Before I move on to the next game, it is Rams are about to score. They're at the 1, and they did just score a touchdown and make it 19-14 with the extra point and possibly the 2-point conversion coming up. One last thought about the Ravens. That Mark Andrews, 2 touchdowns today, made an unbelievable catch, possibly the catch of the day so far, and Baltimore looks like they're even better on offense this year than last year, which is scarier given the fact he looks even better, Mark Andrews, and adding J.K. Dobbins. Moving on to the Bears-Lions game, Mitch Trubisky looked horrible in the beginning. He looked like the QB that I mock and make fun of all the time. At one point he was 7-17. He was missing guys, missing throws. And he just looked like a complete joke of a quarterback, Mitch Trubisky. It looked like Nick Foles was going to come in possibly mid-game and come in for him. And they're down 23-6 against a Detroit team that's really not that good. But he turned it on in the fourth quarter. They were down 17, and he led that comeback, scoring, I believe it was 21 unanswered in the fourth. Let me check. Let me double check to make sure that was the case. Hold on. Yep. 21 unanswered in the fourth quarter. 3 touchdowns for Mitch, making a beautiful throw to Anthony Miller that got him the lead back. And just, wow. I was stunned to see Mitch Trubisky lead that comeback. Honestly, I would have been stunned to see any team make that comeback, much less Mitch Trubisky. But really, good for him. That's definitely going to get his confidence going. Oh, that was another thing. I took Bears money line in that game. So, yep. Continued to look good. What can I say? When you're hot, you're hot. And yeah, Allen Robinson towards the end of the game started playing well. David Montgomery was looking pretty good. Ran the ball well. The thing is, with the Bears trailing all game, he didn't get the chance to carry the ball as much as they probably would have liked to give it to him. On the other side, Detroit, you got to feel for DeAndre Swift. It's his first NFL game. Has a chance to catch a game-winning touchdown. It's in his hands, and he drops it, which... first of all, that was such a Lions way to lose. Blowing that lead to the Bears in the fourth quarter. Having one of your players drop a touchdown pass in the end zone. But, if there's one takeaway you have to have for the Lions in this game, Adrian Peterson ran the ball well. DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson, they ran well also. The offense put up 23 points, even without Kenny Golladay, who's their best receiver, one of the best receivers in the league. And they didn't really have anybody else completely step up in his absence. Sorry, I'm tired. So that was definitely one positive takeaway for the Lions. But at the same time, that loss has to sting. I would definitely say that was the best game of the day. Moving on to another game, I bet, the Green Bay Packers. The Aaron Rodgers revenge tour is real. 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. Oh, and for you guys who say the Packers don't have any receivers outside Devontae Adams, who played out of his freaking mind, by the way. Don't get me wrong, he's a big reason why they won. 14 catches, 2 touchdowns. But Montez Vaughn, MVS, and Alan Hazard, they both had touchdowns too. They both had over 60 yards. Neither of them played that poorly for the Packers. They did enough to help the offense. I actually bet on this game back in May because I saw the Packers were at plus 160, and I'm like, all right, I know it's May, but these odds are not going to get any better. Packers, they're going to win this game. I know everyone, all these fantasy gurus were saying to sit Aaron Rodgers, sit Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, yeah, you said though, just because of his history against the Vikings. I'm like, look, the Vikings are a good team. I'll talk about this with Steven when he came on, that the Vikings have a lot of turnover in that defense. A lot of guys left, and they're bringing in a lot of new pieces. It doesn't mean they're a bad defense, but when you're playing your first game of the season in a short off season and no preseason, it's gonna be a lot different, and that defense is gonna have to take some time to develop cohesion together and learn how to play with each other. I'm sure the Vikings will be fine this season. I think they're definitely gonna start off slow, but Dalvin Cook had 2 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins completed a high percentage of his tosses. Adam Thielen looked good. This Vikings team, it's nothing to completely panic about just yet. But Rodgers, man, if he can continue playing like this, he's could be the MVP this year. His revenge tour is back, and as a Rodgers fantasy football owner, I love to see it. This was the last of the 1 o'clock games I bet, which I went helped me go 5-1 in the 1 o'clock games. Was this Jets Bills game? Bills, I took -6.5. That was free money. Everyone knew, the Jets stink. There was a prop bet for Josh Allen to have over 1.5 touchdowns at +155. And I'm like, all right, got to take that. That's a steal. Won that. But always, the Jets definitely did look better in the second half. I will say that. Darnold got together. And, that the one thing that game did show about Sam Darnold is he's not a bad quarterback. He just has no help around him, man. I mean, Jamison Crowder is not a bad receiver by any stretch of the means, but he cannot be your number one. He had that one real nice play, but until Darnold gets actual weapons and a line around him, he's gonna just not be very good. And he showed it in the first half as he looked porous in the first half. On the other side of the spectrum, the Buffalo Bills looked great. Josh Allen, yeah, he missed a couple throws, but the defense was dominant the entire game. It looks like it's going to be one of the top units in the league this year. Allen still slung the ball perfectly well, hitting 2 touchdowns, running for 1. And that was still in week 1. Again, in a short off season, he's still getting used to his guy, Stephon Diggs. The two are just going to develop more and more of a connection. And as the season goes on, Josh Allen really should just get better. I'm really excited to see what he keeps doing because, everyone was giving him heat for that missing that John Brown throw. I saw a meme on Twitter about it. Get out of here. He's still one of the best guys in the league. Give him a break. Moving on to Panthers Raiders. No one's like, all right, like none of these teams are going anywhere. Like, is this going to be a game that we want to watch on Red Zone? Like, I think on part of my take, they even said that they're going to tune into this game just because of a touchdown or something. But oh man, this is a really fun game. I should have taken the over in this game. I wish I did because I remember even saying on the last episode, oh, you have to take this over. You have to take this over. You have to take this over. And then I didn't. Both teams dropped over 30. There was no defense in the game, which anytime both teams score 30, that's always a great game. Let's go, Cowboys punting the ball. Let's go, Rams. I didn't take the Rams. I just hate the Cowboys, so them losing is always great. Josh Jacobs, I drafted him in the second round of one of my fantasy leagues, and that boy was a dog. 3 touchdowns in his season debut, running behind that dominant Raiders offensive line. I'm actually excited to see what this Raiders team can do this year, believe it or not. Josh Jacobs looked like one of the best running backs in the NFL this game. He was one of the best running backs in the NFL last season as a rookie. He's only going to get better. Derek Carr was making some beautiful throws. I know Raiders fans, especially the ones in Oakland, have gotten on Carr's case over the past couple years, and they go, okay, he's not the best QB. And there was all these comments about what John Gruden thought about Derek Carr and how Derek Carr is not long for being a Raider, but still wants to come out and prove he's the quarterback for this team, and he's slaying the ball perfectly well, especially without Henry Ruggs. They drafted Henry Ruggs to be that number 1 receiver, and early on they were getting him involved in the offense. He was making big plays. He got injured, but whenever he's back, I'm sure he'll be back relatively shortly. He's going to be a big part of this offense, and this offense has the potential to be one of the more fun teams to watch. As for the Panthers, oh man, they were just not good this game on defense. You figure that with all the guys they lost. Teddy Bridgewater actually looked not too bad, completing 64% of his passes, a touchdown. Didn't turn the ball over, hit Robbie Anderson for a big play, but this team just has a lot of holes. The captain of their defense retired this offseason. Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore are in Curtis Samuel, their receivers. That's a receiving core that's not scaring anybody. And then Christian McCaffrey, even though he got the touches, he still didn't make the most out of his touches. And given the lack of talent on that team, I could see defenses keying in on the box more to stop McCaffrey. But the one thing that was so surprising was how last year it seemed like he was having 6, 7, 8, 9 catches a game. Only had 3 catches today on 4 targets. That's one thing that's going to have to change for the Panthers. Is definitely getting Christian McCaffrey more involved in the offense. Moving on to the next game, Dolphins versus Patriots. This was a really, really fun game too. It wasn't really a close game, but Cam Newton, he still got it. He looked good. Yeah, he wasn't slinging the ball downfield, but he was doing what Cam Newton does, and that's running the football. That's moving the chains. 15 carries, 75 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, while completing his pass at a high percentage. Yeah, he only threw it 19 times and 0 touchdowns, but hey, that's a 79% completion percentage. Him and Edelman seem to have a pretty good repertoire. I'm sorry I keep yawning, by the way, guys. I'm just tired. It was a long weekend. Him and Edelman, their repertoire together seems to be really good already. Sonny Michel, Rex Burkhead, they both split some carries. So it seems like this team's going to be a lot more of a run-heavy team. And having Cam Newton allows them to really mix up the run with option plays and using a lot of trickery. That's definitely going to help this Patriots offense currently expand their playbook. Everyone's saying, oh, they only put up 21. They only put up 21. It was just Cam Newton's first game with a new team that he didn't sign with until, I believe, June. So, yeah, Cam Newton was great today. I'm excited to see what he does for the Patriots this season. And I think the 2 o'clock is officially on. Obviously, Fitzpatrick didn't look great. He threw 3 interceptions. Had the 1 rushing 2-point conversion, but just really struggled all game to get this offense going. He's had his magic Fitzpatrick in the past, but it just seems like he's not going to have that magic any longer. So I think that's eventually going to lead to Tua coming in. At this point, it's not a question of if Tua's coming in. It's more of a question of when Tua's coming in. And no matter when that will be, I'm very, very, very excited to see his debut. Moving on to probably the biggest upset of the day was the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Indianapolis Colts. Gardner Minshew looked not just like, oh, he's pretty good. Maybe he could be the QB. He looked great. 19 to 23 touchdowns. That's numbers you see from the elites, the Russell Wilsons, the Drew Brees, the Pat Mahomes, not the Gardner Minshews. What an absolutely phenomenal performance. 3 touchdowns, including the comeback late in the game that put the Jaguars up against the Colts team. Against a heavily favored Colts team, too. I believe the Colts were the biggest favorite of the day. Even rookie James Robinson, 16 carries, 62 yards. Nothing special by any means, but for your rookie running back who was drafted I believe he went undrafted. That's very telling and something to be excited about. One thing with the Colts was it kind of felt like that was the Phillip Rivers who we saw last season struggling with turnovers. He threw 2 in the game. He wasn't making smart passes and just looked his age. Obviously, people thought the biggest concern with Phillip Rivers this offseason to the Colts was his age, and he did look his age this season. People thought, but also people on the other hand thought, Phillip Rivers, game manager. He's going to have Jonathan Taylor. He's going to have Marlon Mack. He's going to have Nyland Himes. All these guys to run the ball with. Well, first off, we lost Marlon Mack to an Achilles injury. I really hope he's okay. I'm a big fan of him as a player. Always brings his hardest to Indianapolis, and that's the last thing I want to see. I think his injury definitely meant that Tyrod Taylor and Hines have to play bigger roles. And even then, they didn't. They carried the ball for a total of 21 times compared to 46 throws for Phillip Rivers. And 46 throws is not that bad, but for a team that's supposed to have a 38-year-old QB be a game manager, those numbers definitely aren't good. You should not be having Phillip Rivers throw the ball 46 times at his age. And again, the picks were really reminiscent of the old Phillip Rivers, and that made me wonder, is the curse of losing a Phillip Rivers thing, or is it an LA Chargers thing? While we're talking, I'll get into the LA Chargers game in a little shortly, actually, but first I want to move on now to, I want to get my thoughts on that game. Look, I think the Colts should be fine. I'm definitely a lot more concerned about them because I do have my Skepticism about Philip Rivers, especially at his age, going to a new team despite the familiarity with the offense. I still think the Colts will probably be fine and win the AFC South, but I'm a lot more nervous about them now than I was then. As for the Jaguars, they're not getting the first pick. They're not going to be a great team, but you know that they're going to come hard and fight, and these guys are going to want to win for their coach. So I believe that there's going to be some games here and there, maybe four, maybe even 5 games they somehow pull out of them and end up pulling off the upset. Just that's who the Jaguars are. They all love their guy Gardner Minshew and Minshew Mania, and they might not be taken for Trevor Lawrence anymore. It'll be really interesting to see who gets him after this season. Moving on to the last slate of the 1 o'clock games, Falcons Seahawks. It's funny. I remember saying that. Oh, these two teams always playing wild games, always playing close games. Something crazy always happens. I guess something crazy did happen. The Falcons did recover an onside kick, but it was too little, too late. But the most surprising part was this game just not being close. Like I said, it seems like every single Sunday it's a close Seattle game. Russell Wilson's a big game-winning drive. Matt Ryan's trying to lead a game-winning drive. Oh, the Falcons blew the lead. The Seahawks blew the lead. But nope, this game was from beginning to end was a dominant performance by Seattle. Russell Wilson threw the ball 31 of 35 times, 4 touchdowns. Probably looked like the MVP of the first week. And this team's only going to be getting better. DK Metcalf got off to a slow start, much like he did last year. As the season progresses, he'll get better and better, DK. Chris Carson, I know they're easing him back in simply because he's coming off a hip injury. But he had 2 receiving touchdowns, and he looks like he's going to be doing plenty out of that backfield. When Seattle gets their weapons fully ready to play, such as DK Metcalf, such as, oh my God, how am I blanking on his name? Such as Tyler Lockett, such as Carlos Hyde, Rashad Penny, and Chris Carson. This offense is as good as any in the league, and it's a big reason why I picked Seattle to win the NFC. As for Atlanta, the first-round picks on their team, definitely a really cool story. Julio, Ridley, Hurst, most of the offensive line, Matt Ryan, Todd Gurley. So this Falcons, the offense definitely does have potential. It's there. The offense put up 25 points. Matt Ryan put up a ton of yards. It's more just so that their defense needs to be able to make a stop, which has been the case the past couple of years, and it's going to be the case this year. One other game, so I'm going to move on to the 4 o'clock slate, starting with another game that I bet on and won, the Arizona Cardinals. I actually, after my hot streak, I decided to take Cardinals money line because I remember saying, I have a feeling about the Cardinals, and was my feeling right? Somebody just told me they were going to come in and win that game. Part of it being the 49ers didn't really have any wide receivers playing. I think their best one was Kendrick Bourne, who should not be number 1 receiver for any single person in this league. It seemed like most of the targets were going to running backs, were going to tight ends, such as George Kittle. But also, you can say, oh, they didn't have receivers, But hats off to the Cardinals' defense. People said this defense would be their weak suit, and the secondary made plenty of big plays. They really took away from the Jimmy G deep ball, and that's something that really, really helped them win this game. Oh, let's go. That's a big drop for the Cowboys and from the eye over chances. But again, Chandler Jones, he was breaking through the offensive line, which is one of the better offensive lines in football, forcing pressure on Jimmy G, making him in a lot of underneath throws, a lot of poor throws. And what about the Arizona Cardinals? Kyler Murray, still a young guy, and his second year in the NFL, led a drive early in the fourth quarter to take the lead. Niners come right down and march down the field, score, and then Kyler Murray comes back, and he marches down the field on his own right and leads a game-winning drive against the San Francisco 49ers, who have one of the best defenses in the NFL. So shout out to him, his second season, that he showed why he was the first overall pick. And I'm telling you, the Cardinals are going to win 11 games this year. They are a good team. That offense is going to get even better when they're playing defenses that are not as good as the 49ers. And see what happened at the end? They had that 49ers defense worn down, and the offense looked great. And a big part of that is because of the guy they traded for, DeAndre Hopkins. Oh, my Lord. He hooped 14 catches. I don't know what the Texans were thinking trading him. That trade looked worse. I don't think the trade could have looked worse after the way the Texans' offense looked Thursday night. But, oh, man, that offense really, really missed him. And he took the Cardinals' offense to a whole nother level of elevation. Took it to an elevator. Like, what? What did I even say there? But DeAndre Hopkins really elevated that Cardinals offense. He adds that key piece that Kingsbury wants. And the Murray-Hopkins connection, I think, is going to be one of the most dangerous all season to come. And I'm excited to see more how this defense grows. Obviously, Chandler Jones is one of the better pass rushers in the league for a few years. Patrick Peterson has been one of the better cornerbacks in the full year for the last few years. And I'm really excited to see how Isaiah Simmons fits into that offense, as he was one of the top defenders in the nation last year, including picking off my guy, Justin Fields. Bengals Chargers. Joe Burrow looked solid. He had a decent repertoire with AJ Green. The big thing was he had no protection from the offensive line. Bosa was getting in his face all game long. He was either being taken down for a sack early or having to scramble out of the pocket and being forced into making bad throws. The main reason he was in that game was because Tyrod Taylor also just was not that good for the Chargers. I mean, the thing with Tyrod, we talked about this in my group chat. He's not a bad player, Tyrod. He's definitely won games here in the league. He doesn't turn it over, but the thing is, he's too conservative, and his conservativeness is not going to help your team win a ton of games in a season. Yeah, maybe he can lead your team to the playoffs, but if he's that conservative, he's not leading a team anywhere past the divisional round. I think that they should go to Justin Herbert soon, but we'll see how much longer that takes. Another shocker that happened in this in that game was just what happened at the end. Randy Bullock, the Cincinnati kicker, coming in to try to kick a game-tying field goal, kicks it and tears his hamstring, kicking it. That's some Chargers like BS. That's the stuff that usually happens to them, but for once when it happened in their favor, that was just so bizarre. And you gotta feel bad for Randy Bullock just because, you're a kicker. You don't do much but kick the field goal. So for you to actually get an injury, I feel bad for him. Last game of the slate is the Saints-Bucks game. Woof! Tom Brady looked horrible. I mean, look, I'm not gonna freak out here and be like, oh, he's done, he's washed up. Like people are saying, oh, he's done, washed up. Told you so. It was one game. This is a quarterback who has been in the same system for the last 20 years. Yeah, when he enters a new system in a weird off season, it's gonna be a little harder to adjust. But at the same time, I wouldn't freak out and be like, oh, Brady sucks, Brady sucks, Brady sucks. If you actually think that you're a clown and don't know football, he still made some great throws. His receivers had plenty of drops, and oh my god. Sorry, that oh my god was in the reaction to the Cowboys almost getting a pick. But yeah, the receivers obviously dropped some passes. The Buccaneers committed a ton of penalties, which was forcing Brady into the team into a ton of third and longs. The offensive line didn't look great. There was pressure on Brady all game. And with the offensive line not looking great, they failed to establish the run game, which Brady was really hoping to do this season. But again, I am not too worried about that result. The Saints are still one of the best teams in the NFL, and they're going to be fine. If you're actually worried about Tom Brady, then don't be, because that's when he proves doubters wrong. So I'm not, until he actually falls off a cliff and retires or throws more interceptions than touchdowns, I'm not buying. I'm not getting off the Tom Brady train. As much animosity, I don't even have the animosity towards him as much anymore. I used to. I've kind of gotten over it. But I do want to see him perform well. It looks very, very, very strange seeing him out in that jersey. But, I'm not worried about them at all. The Saints are still obviously Super Bowl contenders. That roster is just so loaded with talent. That was another bet I hit. I took the over in this game. So, yeah, 7-1. Great day on the book. Really, really happy. Hopefully the under can hit and I can finish my day 8-1. As for my NFL picks, let me pull up my document and see who I chose. All right, so outside of my 7-1 amazing gambling day, I went 9-4 with my picks overall. Obviously, this game's still pending. I picked the Rams. Excited to see how this game ends. And yeah, that's really about it for talking football. One of my fantasy teams went off for over 170 points. Josh Jacobs, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Will Fuller, Hunter Henry, all bought out for this team. The other two teams are screwed. There was also some college football this weekend. Still no Big Ten, but apparently the Big Ten is voting on a return to play again, so that's some really, really exciting news. If they can return to play and vote, and Ohio State can play and maybe get into the playoff, then this season means something again, and I'm very happy. The SEC didn't play, so it still didn't feel like football was back. The ACC did. Clemson looked great. UNC looked great in the second half. I know people are expecting a lot of big things out of them. And Mac Williams, uh, is it Mac Williams? Uh, no. What's Mac Brown? That's his last name. In Mac Brown's second year there, the recruiting classes are just getting better and better, and UNC is gonna eventually be a force in the ACC who can potentially challenge Clemson for supremacy. But one team that's playing football is the Big 12, and at this point, you gotta question the Big 12 stance as a Power 5 conference. The Sun Belt won 2 games. Kansas State lost. Iowa State looked horrible against Louisiana Lafayette. Kansas got blown out by Coastal Carolina. For 3 teams of a Power 5 conference to lose in week 1 against teams outside the conference, that's definitely calls for concern. And I'd say maybe the Big 12, not so good after all. I mean, everyone knows the Big 10 and the SEC are the top 2 conferences, but the Big 12 people thought were third, and honestly, maybe not anymore. In hockey news, both the Lightning and the Stars are up 3-1 in their series. I think the Lightning should close out their series tomorrow, while I think the Stars have. I think the Stars might, or not tomorrow. They'll close out their series in 2 days. While I think the Stars will probably lose one more game, but I still think they're going to win in advance to the Stanley Cup. And that's about it for this episode of the Bird's Eye View. Remember, if you want to stay in touch with all my episodes, subscribe to me on Spotify, follow me on SoundCloud at the Bird's Eye View, follow the Bird's Eye View on YouTube, follow the Bird's Eye View podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and follow J Bird's Eye View on Twitter. Thank you guys, everybody, so much for listening, and take care.